Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today we've got a very special guest. His name is Scott Lackey, and Scott's got quite a story. He is a veteran. He's gone through combat zones, dealt with all kinds of situations, as you might imagine, as a combat veteran, but he's an inventor, an Ironman athlete, an author, a columnist, and his story is about when grit alone isn't enough. And Lord knows I know all about that. I just got through a cancer battle and had to go through digging deep, and grit wasn't quite enough, and we had to go there. Anyway, Scott, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you.
Likewise, Joe, and especially thankful that we could talk about healthy living today.
Yes.
That's important to me and you, and I know your audience. And so thank you for letting me come on board and having this conversation on this beautiful day.
Well, it's my pleasure. We had a little bit of chance to talk before, and it seems like we've got a lot in common. I'd like to hear a little bit about your story. You know, being a military veteran, we were talking about my nonprofit a little bit, and one of the things we do is everything that we do, we offer to veterans for free. And I'm not a veteran, but I enjoy the liberties provided by veterans. And so I don't take that lightly. So thank you for your service. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yes, sir. And thank you for saying that. And so my time in the military was, just to replay history for a moment, I did things a little differently than most, in that I didn't know what to do during high school. And I was a terrible student, not because of capability, it was because of interest. I enjoyed playing basketball, enjoyed, playing on weekends and track and all those things. I enjoyed fun too much in high school. I only
You want to
mention
hear
that.
about my high school days?
We may have been best friends in high school. Didn't even
Probably would have.
Yeah. But fortunately for me, there was what I like to refer to in my book was a lightning strike moment, right? Where everything changes. And not only everything changes, but the person that you are or who you become on the other side of that lightning strike moment. You can't go back to who you were. And you just mentioned that about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I can only imagine the moment you were sitting there or on the phone with the doctor and he or she said to you, Joe X, you are no longer who you were milliseconds ago.
Yes.
And that's a lightning strike. They're not all bad, but the ones we talk about are the ones that shake us to our very DNA.
But even the bad ones, I think sometimes they've got the potential to be the best ones. They're not fun or easy, but they give you that place where you can make the most positive change if you decide to.
1,000,000,000%. And that is littered throughout my book. And the title of my book, not to get off track here, but it's important, is Wake Up to Die Again.
Yes.
Okay. And some of us know what that means, but for two different reasons, Joe. But on the healthy living mindset, wake up to die again is a beautiful thing because we're discarding things that no longer serve us so that we can break through and gain something more.
Indeed.
But you and I also know people, and we want to help them. We know people that wake up to die again every day, and they're losing a part of themselves every day, and they don't know how they got to where they are. They're stuck. They're lost. Okay. But, we were talking about my story in the military, and that's really, honestly, kind of the theme of my life. I've lived 9 lives, and much of it was to wake up and die again, but not the good kind.
Yeah.
Right? To lose a little bit of myself every day. And there's a lot of stories in the book, and I won't go through all of them, but it was a lightning strike moment to find myself choosing to go into the military versus college because I wasn't ready for college out of high school, and I knew that. And the military was a wonderful gift and a course correction in my life that changed it forever. And I didn't learn until many years later that it was really prophetic in my life that I chose to go in the military and what it did for me and how it changed me as a human being. But then I went to college after the military, spent 4 years in college, got a degree in finance. And after that, I went out into the, career world, moved to Dallas, Texas, and started working but I've done so many different things. I've invented a product called, my second invention actually was funded by a private equity firm for $3 million, a product called a childhood health passport.
Wow.
That didn't go well.
Oh,
Yeah, well, it went well in the beginning, when we got funded. I got a
yeah.
great trip to Cancun out of it, but I got fired about 6 months later, along with the management team.
Wow.
But I tell you these brief stories, and these were earlier in my life. I tell these brief stories because when you talk about, Scott, what has your life been like?
Yeah.
It's been wake up to die again moments my whole life. And then I want to comment on exactly what you said. You intervened and said, some of the really bad ones give us, you didn't exactly say this, but you said, kind of give us the gifts that we would never expect.
Mm-hmm.
And I could not agree with you more. As a matter
Yeah.
of fact, one of the chapters in my book, literally the title of that chapter is "The Gifts Are in the Pain." And so, Scott, are you saying to Joe that that because he got cancer, that he'll get something out of that is going to be better for him? I'm 100%
Indeed.
saying that.
100%.
I'm 100%. Yeah. And I've never had that, don't want that, but I know
You
it to
want
be
it.
true. But I
Yeah.
know it to be true.
But you can make that out of whatever adversity comes your way. I'm a pretty thick-headed guy, and I think God kind of said, "Well, you're not going to listen till I give you something that you can't not pay attention to. So here you go." And
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to pay
Yeah. But I
attention.
think he does that for all of us. Is that, I have a little saying. I didn't write this in the book, but I say it all the time. If you're unwilling to pay attention, attention is going to pay you a visit.
Exactly. So true. And especially if you want, if you're a good-hearted person and you want to be your best person, but you just are lost and don't know how, or you don't think to do the thing that would get you there, it seems that you get given these quote opportunities.
Opportunities.
And
Yeah. And
if you got the sense to go after and do the right thing, then you can literally turn it around. I've done over 40 episodes on this podcast talking about my journey, and each one has the ability to reach a different person at a different
that's correct.
stage. And it's working. They're doing it.
It is. Yeah, that's correct. And not only reach them, you emphasize something. You're not directly saying it, but you're saying it is that you said a different person. And
Yes.
that's really, really important because we are all on this little blue planet together, but we are all on our independent journey going somewhere different.
Oh,
So
yeah.
just because right now, right this moment, you and I are walking the same path together. We're on this
Right.
podcast, walking down the same path together. We're going different places. And knowing that your audience is the same thing, they can take something out of this conversation, apply it to their life. That's why I avoid at all costs telling people what to do. I'll
Yeah.
share a story. I'll give you insight. I'll tell you how I did it, but you're
Yep.
not going to hear me say you should do this because I don't want to be responsible for that.
Exactly. It's so true. I always tell people this is one of my little Joeisms, but I say this. Everything you've done in your life, every choice you've made, good and bad, every decision, everything, action, inaction, has brought you to this moment right now. And you and I are sharing that moment because of everything both of us did in our lives. And
That's
maybe
right,
it'll
Joe.
last for a second, a week, an hour, a month, a year, or a lifetime. We don't know. But we
Yep.
both got directed here right now.
1000%. And I believe that is no accident. It is never an accident when paths cross like moments like this, even for the audience,
Right.
because I have experienced it so many times in my life, so many times where I thought it was an incident, an accident. It's not an
Mhm.
accident. There's purpose behind everything, including and equally important, the pain that we go through. There is a purpose there. And I ask people in my book to harness that, and not only to harness it, but look for it because it's pain or difficulty or loss or whatever you want to call it. That's where the gifts are. As a matter of fact, another chapter in the book, the pain
Yeah.
is where the gifts are. Okay. And the pain means it is in the work that you're avoiding as a human being.
Yeah. It's always like, if there's a thing that you don't feel like doing, like you're avoiding at all costs, that's the thing
That's
you
what you're
need to
supposed
be
to do.
doing right now. Yeah.
I said that on another podcast. I was asked the question, something about, Scott, how do the listeners know what to do?
Yeah.
So, well, that's easy. Every single listener knows what to do because they're
Yep.
running from it.
Yep.
Turn around and face it and deal with it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the sooner you deal with it, I know you know this too, Joe, I can tell. The sooner you deal with it, the gift that you get from that is it no longer has power or control over you.
Exactly. Exactly. Whatever your fear is, just turn around and go, okay, it might be uncomfortable, it might be painful, it might be ugly, it might be whatever, but at least it's not going to be here anymore.
My son literally just showed me this when I got home getting ready for this podcast. As someone on Instagram had, was looking at this adversity. And of course, he was all dirty and hair standing up, but he was looking at adversity and he was getting back up. And he says, okay, second round, you hit like I won't use the word, you hit like a so-and-so. This
Yeah,
is the second round. I'm coming back now, you know?
exactly.
And it got
Exactly.
me laughing because that was what he was talking about was life.
Yeah, 100%. So you talk about pain a lot, and it looks like you got into the Ironman world. What's that about?
Yeah, during COVID, it's worth telling the story about why did I do an Ironman. First of all, I had always wanted to do the full 140.6 mile Ironman race. Always, always, always from the second I saw it on television
Okay.
many, many years ago. And my journey to doing that was, again, over 15, maybe 20 years ago, was doing the short races, what are called the sprints and the Olympic distance races. And I just stopped. And when I stopped, I got fat, I got out of shape and
Uh-huh.
unhealthy, and among other things. Believe it or not, I was smoking a little bit,
All right.
And fast forward to COVID. What is that now? 6 years ago, 7 years
Yeah,
ago?
5, 6 years ago, 7, maybe.
Everything in life was perfectly fine. Everybody's healthy. Kids are doing great. I love my wife to death. I was working home for a few months. She wasn't teaching. It was in the summer, the spring. And, we were holding hands and taking lunch walks together. But this voice, this thought came into my head, and it was a sentence. And the sentence was, "You're not where you're supposed to be."
Oh boy.
I'm like, what? You mean everything's fine? You
Right.
need to shut up. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying my walks and leave me alone. And no, I don't want to say intensity, but the degree of frequency every single day increased. You're not where you're supposed to be. And then it started to carry a weight.
Hmm.
I felt a weight inside me of this is something I need to address. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. It was kind of freaking
Yeah.
me out, to be honest with you. And in my true form, as we talked about earlier, I sat down one day privately. And I said, okay, what the hell is this feeling all about? What's going on? I was trying to meditate on the thought, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
And the next word that was planted, the next thought that was planted in my brain was broken promises.
Whoa.
And I was like, broke any promises? This is my reaction, my knee jerk reaction to everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I won't drag the story out. I just simply have to set that up to understand why Ironman. But I went through this exercise with myself, which was no. You know what broken promises you broke. You broke the promise that you were going to do an Ironman, and
Ah.
you broke the promise that you were going to write a book, and you broke the promise that you were going to treat your body better and be healthy and lose that weight, and you broke the promise that you were going to do this, and you're just this laundry list
It
of
turned out you were
broken
breaking a lot of
promises
promises.
to myself, right? Nobody else, just
Yeah,
myself.
right.
And out of all of that, I had to make a decision when I became aware of the truth. What are you going to do about it? And I made a decision. The one thing out of all of those things that really inspired me and made the hair on the back of my neck stand up was I'm finally going to do my Ironman.
All right.
And I signed up to do the Ironman in Tempe, Arizona. And it was in November of that year. And I started training, and I did not tell anybody that I was training because I didn't trust myself. And I was afraid I was going to break my promises again.
Okay.
So I didn't break my promises. And I trained for about 11 months with a coach and ultimately did the Ironman race. But that's the genesis of why I came back to do the Ironman race was to fulfill a broken promise to myself and to regain trust with myself. But I also want to springboard. After the Ironman was over, I continued to do half Ironman races, 70.3 miles. And it was in that training period of doing the half Ironmans, I said, okay, let's go back to the to-do list. What was next on what big next project was on the to-do list where you broke a promise? And it was to write a book, which published this week, Joe. As a matter of fact, I have my author
Oh, it
proof right
just
here.
was published. Wow.
Yeah, just published. Well, here's even better news for your listeners. I just got an email this morning that I am #1 on the new release Amazon.com list of new published books. I
Wow.
just got that email this
Fantastic.
morning, man. That's amazing. So, yeah.
All right. That's fantastic. Well, tell us about the book.
Sure. So I've used the title, I think earlier in our conversation. The title of the book is Wake Up to Die Again, Breaking Who You Became So You Can Be Who You're Meant to Be. That's the title. And when I say what is the book about, if I may, this won't take just a second.
Oh,
This has been the most requested, the most commented on chart is that when people read the preface. Can I do that 2 paragraphs real quick, Joe?
absolutely. Please. Yeah.
So when people ask, I just guess I just need to memorize this, but it's what I wrote. I've learned that things we survive don't define us. What we do with them does. I've bled, fallen, failed, been betrayed, and risen more times than I can count. But I've stopped hiding the evidence. My scars aren't reminders of what broke me. They're proof of what couldn't. They're the handwriting of grace etched across skin and soul, a quiet testimony that what tried to kill me failed. Failure isn't the ending, it's the beginning. This book is for every man and woman trying to stand, still standing, still believing there is more to their story. Don't hide your scars. They're proof you were meant to live like never before. If you're ready to turn the page, let's walk into the rest of this story together.
I love it. That was very well written.
Oh, Joe, that's what you just said to yourself, which is not hiding my scars. We're going to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's key. You've touched on a few points that I think are important. There's a lot of schools of thinking. I've interviewed over 250 guests on this show with all types of points of view. And some people say, well, you got to talk about everything you're doing, so you're holding yourself accountable and, surround yourself with the people that'll support you. But I think when you really, really, really mean it, you just get together with yourself and God and you just do it. And then you show everybody what you did afterward. The most difficult things I've done in my life, I took on inside of me. And once I had at least made a milestone, then I began to share it. The cancer was different because I had a giant tumor sticking out of my neck and there was no, it was not a rare cancer, but it was a unique situation where people would look at me and know there was something up. And, I had an opportunity there though to to share my story. So that was
Yeah.
an anomaly through that. But the notion of these difficulties, these failures, there's all these people talk about failing forward and all of this and that. It's all so true. Every obstacle, every difficulty, every time you get cut, like I've got cuts and scrapes, and I work with a special needs group, and I've been trimming up a tree that's got thorns on it. So my arm,
Oh, okay.
like I just came out of a battle. And this one kid yesterday, he's like, "What happened to you?" And I says, it's just a little cut. We get through it. It's not a big deal.
Yep.
He was
Paper
like, "Oh
cut.
no, you got blood." I'm like, "Yeah, we got lots of it." And, it was
Yeah.
not a big deal. And I think that's the key to everything. I really would like to, I'm gonna get your book and read it and share that story. I'm probably gonna be shaking my head through the
Yeah.
whole thing. And that's fantastic. You just published it. It's already in the #1
New
new
release.
new releases. Man, I'm excited. That's really great.
It would be an honor if you do get it, to be honest with you, especially from our pre-call briefly, is I think that understanding what you do, where you came from a little bit, but
Yeah.
what you do now. Again, not every book is for everybody, but
Right.
this book attacks and tackles what I believe is desperately needing to be discussed in today's world, but it's an introspection of ourself, right? I don't blame the world for anything. This Wake Up to Die Again book is about looking at ourself and what do we need to do with ourself to get right, you know?
Exactly. Now you have a coaching program right now. Tell me
Actually,
about
I'm
that.
not coaching right now. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
coaching right now. What I'm focused on right now, well, the obvious thing was the enormous work of finishing the book, getting it edited and all
Oh
that stuff
yeah.
and getting it launched. That was what I was focused on. And on the immediate moment, now that it is out there, it's continuing with these podcasts to reach
Nice.
out to the audience and share the book. And hopefully, again, they'll download it on Kindle or purchase it and read it. And then the third leg of the stool is the opportunity to be invited out to locations where I can speak to an audience
I love it.
and have Q&A, with the audience to support them. If nothing else would make me happier, Joe, if whether it's your message or my message, this
It's
world
the
needs
same
people who
message.
are willing to help them. Do what?
I said it's the same message. It's just
It's the
coming from
same.
a
Yeah,
different point of
that's what
view.
I'm saying
Yeah.
is but the world needs more of us, needs more
Yeah.
Joes and more Scotts who lean into those who are lost and to help. We can't do it for them, but to help. And there are people out there willing to listen. And here's the key. They're willing to listen to Joe's message and Scott Lackey's message if they will be honest and transparent and vulnerable and tell the truth because they need to see that we suffered and got out of it. They don't need this crap that's out there about just do these 7 things and you
Right.
too can have $1 million. They know it's a lie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's, especially, with my journey, I had so many people come and tell me, this is all you need to do. And they tell me about some fruit or some herb or something. And I connected in a very difficult way through a lot of work and a lot of networking and a lot of research and a lot of effort, the right people that helped me find the right combination of tools. And it was not one thing, it was a stack of things in a particular way with a particular mindset and a particular drive that caused me to resolve the problem. And I believe that at the core of it, the things I did could help anybody. But
Yeah,
that's what I would talk about is, well, do you want to live? That's when people come to me, the first thing I say, they say, oh, I got this, I got that. I go, well, do you want to live? Like that's
man,
huge.
you just gave me chill bumps saying that.
Yeah.
And that's hard for somebody to do to me. You
Yeah.
just gave me chill bumps because what a beautiful question.
Yeah. And you'd be
You know, a guy
surprised.
asked me, a guy asked me the other day, Joe, he said, I was telling him about, a particular lightning strike in my life where we lost everything, and I mean everything. And I had to
Yeah.
go home and tell my wife who was pregnant with my daughter, and we had our 2.5-year-old son. And the house we were in was the house we brought our babies home to. And you have to go home and look at her and share with her. But I guess you could say you don't have to, but you know,
Probably best.
but
Yeah.
but a bad strategy to not do that. But anyway, he asked me, how do you recover from that? How do you get up from that?
Yeah.
Right? And there is no shocking answer to that. For me, the answer was, and it mirrors what you're saying is do you want to live?
Yeah.
Is is that I got up, not so much, it wasn't because there was anybody in my ear saying, Scott, get up, Scott, you can do it, Scott. No, hell no, that didn't happen. There
Right.
wasn't anybody there. It was a black room with no lights, and I'm filling the wall looking for a light switch. That's where I
Yeah.
was.
Right.
But the reason I chose to get back up was because I looked across the room at my wife, my beautiful wife that I love, and my 2.5-year-old son, and she was pregnant. And I said, I'm going to get up for them. I may not be
Yeah.
able to do it for myself. I may be pissed off at myself, but this
Yeah.
wasn't their fault. And I'm going to
Right.
get up for them. And that's that question. Do you want to live? If you do, especially if you love your family and you
Yeah.
do care about yourself, that is a powerful, powerful thing to dig into
Yeah.
of asking I love that question.
Well, that's the first thing I do when somebody comes to me and they tell me about their problems, because people are pretty quick to talk about a problem. But when it comes to a solution, it's a whole nother conversation. And I've learned that, like, the things that I did to solve my problem were very difficult and things that you wouldn't want to do. And that's why I asked that question, because most people, they're like, what? You know?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm going to tell you things I did that you're not going to want to do, but if you really want to live, it won't matter.
Yep. Yep. Joe, I can't
There's-
wait. I swear I cannot wait for you to get this book. You're going to be a bobblehead reading
I
this
love
book.
it. I love it. Well, I'll probably get off the phone and or get off this call and order it right away so I don't forget about it. But it's interesting how these questions that we've had in common, totally different life, totally different
Yep.
experiences, but we come to these same truths through this whole thing. I've had a few moments in my life where I got a clear message in my head as well, and one of
Yeah.
them was when I was solving this problem. I had this giant tumor sticking out of my neck, and I was on my way to some answers. They were not going to be fun or easy, but I had to make these decisions. And I was getting ready to work with an indigenous medicine, which is a whole nother chapter of my book.
Yeah.
And I was preparing, meditating, and I got a clear, as you and I are talking, what are you willing to do for this? And I was like, whoa.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I was like, I thought about it for about a second, and I said, whatever it takes, I'm not going to sell my soul, but anything other than that, I'm going to do it. And through that whole process, I got shown my whole life in front of me, and my healthy body. I got to see it while I was still dealing with the difficulty. And I says, oh, okay, all I got to do is the hard work, and I've got this. And it carried me. Hi, this is Joe Grumbine, and I wanted to share an update. The platform that hosts this podcast has made some changes to the subscriber settings, and we have a number of subscriber-only episodes that we offer to the supporters, and for a minimum of $3 a month, we can get you signed up. And if you're already signed up and you're having some kind of trouble locating these episodes in the other platforms, I would say maybe the best answer is to unsubscribe and then resubscribe. I'm sorry for the hassle. I don't have any way to make a change, but I'm very grateful for all the support. Thank you.
Unbelievable. I'm shaking my head and I'm looking down. I know I'll never find this quickly in my book. This is the phrase I used in my book.
Yeah.
At the beginning of my Ironman workouts, this was the thought that kept coming to me. You're going to laugh when I say this. Scott, what are you willing to sacrifice? That was the thought. It's all over my book. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to sacrifice? And I eventually had to answer that question. And the question was, you know what? I'm willing to sacrifice myself.
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
And the same thing was true when I wrote the book. I had to re-answer the question. Scott, what are you willing to sacrifice to write this book? And I had to answer that question. And the answer was me again.
Yeah.
Because you cannot write a book that is transparently, vulnerably honest about what the hell happened and to help other people. You cannot be authentic unless you tell the truth and you're authentic, right? So that means you have to sacrifice yourself. So when when people read this book, they're not going to read this book and go, oh my God, Scott didn't make any mistakes. He was wonderful. No, it's quite the opposite. I sacrificed Scott throughout the entire book,
Yeah. No, it's true. People don't realize that we're never the same person. Every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year, your cells are completely new cells.
Yeah.
You have molecules that you took in from your food. You let go things. You are literally a different person constantly.
That's right.
That we have these hangups based on, well, I don't want to change. And it's like, what are you thinking? You're changing constantly. And to
You
try
are
to
in a
keep
state of
yourself
change.
what you were is an abomination, really.
Yeah.
And
But what's beautiful about that though, if you can get someone to realize that they're in a constant state of change,
Yeah.
right? If you can get them to realize that, and it's not that things are happening to you, okay? These are simply naturally occurring things
They're just
in
happening.
yourself, okay? But here's the but, at least in for me, is that if change is going to constantly happen, then what happens if I begin to voluntarily push myself into the change? What
Yeah.
happens then?
Yeah.
That's where I don't use the word control, but I will use the word influence. You
Yeah.
begin to influence your life's trajectory
Yeah.
of where you're going, never control, but you begin to influence. And that's where the real change takes place, is when you become an active participant in the change versus sitting on the couch waiting for the stupid luck ball to hit you in the head.
It's like the
It
difference
does.
between drifting and sailing. You can't control the wind, but you can direct it. You can use it to get where you need to go sometimes.
Yeah. Don't be the leaf in the fall just blowing to and fro because the wind is blowing. Don't do that.
Exactly. Well, listen, Scott, I do this almost every time. I run out of time before I run out of questions, but it's all good. I'd love to have you back to continue this conversation maybe after a few months and see how your book's doing, and maybe when you get some speaking engagements. But before we go, a couple of questions. You likely have had a major impact on people through your coaching or just through who you are. I know people like us tend to, people ask us questions and you're able to affect people sometimes. Tell me about a story where something you did or said had really affected somebody that you noticed.
Yeah, thank you for asking that very much. I'm going to tell you a story that recently happened actually during just before the editing process of my book was started. I selected many different types of beta readers, every socioeconomic, gender, everything under just this plurality of all these different people. And one gentleman that I selected was selected because I had not seen him in at least 15 years, had not spoken in forever,
Okay.
15 years. I mean, all right. But I knew him of a man of character that he would tell me the truth. He would just absolutely tell me the truth. And that was what I was attracted to. So I asked him if he would be willing to be one of my beta readers under the agreement that as he read through each chapter, he would basically send me a written comment on those chapters of some specific questions. But he had to, promise me to be transparent. Otherwise, we just had to agree to disagree, right?
Right, right.
He said, no problem. I'd love to do that, Scott. And I will honor your request and I will do that. And about 3 weeks or so went by and I got a text from him and it made my heart drop because the text opened up by saying, Scott, I have to apologize about where I'm at in your book or your manuscript's what he said. And my heart sank because I thought, oh, I'm going to get exactly what I asked for, which is maybe information I don't want.
All right.
And that was the first thought when I saw that. Then the text went on to say this. You don't know this, but I've been going through a hard time in my life. And I think what's going to happen is that your manuscript in its current condition is actually going to help me more than I can help you. I'm through 6 chapters and I have laughed and cried through 6 chapters. And I have to set your book down because I have to look at myself and I need to think through this before I go any further.
Wow.
I have that memorized because that's how impactful it was to me to hear that from someone I haven't spoken to in 15 years. And I did not know they were going through this place in their life. And they didn't even know what my book was about because when they asked me, well, sure, Scott, I'll be a beta reader and I promise to do this and that. What's the book about? I said, you'll figure it out. I didn't want to tell them what the book was about.
Right.
Who am I to say what it's about? I know I wrote it, but you and I both know this, Joe, is that every audience member, everybody's on their own journey. They're going to see things that I don't see. That's why you're a beta reader.
Exactly.
So that is a direct example, a recent example of something that absolutely floored me in the words from my book and the impact on that person's life.
Wonderful. And if you had one thought to leave our audience with, what would that look like?
Yeah, thanks for asking that too. I'm going to speak to myself about this. So I'm going to beat up Scott for a second. I lived a whole lot of my life, Joe, a whole lot of my life, thinking it was all about addition. Okay. I thought what addition to get the house, get the car, the wife, the kids, the bank account, the investments, the weekend barbecues, the shoes, just addition, just more. And every freaking time I arrived, Joe, every freaking time there was nobody there and it was empty. But I didn't tell anybody because that voice kept saying, that's a little further, man, over the next hill, around the next curve, just keep going. Not realizing that voice was leading me to my own destruction. Okay. And why am I saying this to the audience? Because I guarantee there are audience listeners right now that are chasing addition and wondering why they feel so empty inside. Here's my solution for me to consider. It was always about subtraction. It was never about addition. And what subtraction looks like is doing less and discarding things that you know are not serving you. And when you start doing that, in my opinion, because it worked for me and it's worked for tens of thousands of other people, is the act of stopping certain things will move us away from unhealthy living and move us toward healthy living, which is the theme of your podcast, Joe.
100%. We have a lot in common. I got whole stories I could share on that as well. Well, listen, Scott, it's been a pleasure to have you. Why don't you share your contact information and how people can find your book or get in touch with you?
Easy one, because my name is my website, Scott Lackey, Lackey, scottlackey.com. And if something in this did impact you or you'd like to know more, please send me an email. Let both Joe and I know at the same time. Second of all is Amazon.com. I would appreciate your support with the book. It is, I believe, life-changing for some, but the name of the book on Amazon.com, Wake Up to Die Again by Scott Lackey. Thank you, Joe.
Beautiful, Scott. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And again, let's get back in touch in a couple of months and see, maybe once you got on that stage and shared your message with a bunch of people, I'd love to hear about all that. And just want to thank you again for sharing all your wisdom with us.
100%, Joe. Thank you for the invitation. I'm sure our paths are going to cross again, sir.
I love it. Well, this has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and I want to thank all of the listeners for making this show possible, and we will see you next time. This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.